Good evening.
Good evening, Frank. How are you?
Good evening, Michael.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Frank Joseph Hoff on the line with me, everybody. Frank, wherever you would like to start is fine with me, and I want to thank you for taking time out to be with us. Going to be a very interesting night, and we could possibly, as we bring each guest on, we'll have them give a little more background because I'm sure I didn't do some of the names in those bios justice. So, but wherever you'd like to start, Frank.
Okay, well, like I say, good evening to you and all your listeners. And yes, this is going to be an important show because we do have Dr. Danny Hillman, and it's Nata Wijaya will be on. And also, he is a geologist and actually the lead scientist for the Gunung Padang megalithic pyramid mountain location, which is actually artificial, by the way, and he'll get into that. And also our archaeologist is Dr. Ali Akbar. They are both located in Indonesia. And so I probably, maybe for your listeners, should give maybe the 101 as far as about maybe myself. I don't know. Did you read my bio too? Or did you
yes, I did. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I used to be the business agent and researcher and understudy for Professor Mauricio Nunes dos Santos and his book, which is Atlantis, the Lost Continent Finally Found, and with the subtitle of The Definitive Localization of Plato or Plato's Lost Civilization. I should tell everybody, originally, Professor Santos did not go out in endorsing Atlantis or thinking it was even existed ever. It took him about 10 years into the research after his son Antonio started to tip him off on it might be a good idea to look into this because he had read Eric von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, and got inspired by that. So he wanted his father to actually check in to what this situation might be in regards to Atlantis, if it might be a real situation. He didn't think it was, but after about 10 years of research, he found out there was really something to it. Then he took another 10 years to start filling in the pieces. And then since the last 10 years with a little bit with me on that, in order to really fill in all the pieces of the puzzle. And I'm not talking about like a 1,000-piece puzzle or a 2,000-piece puzzle, but actually like a billion-piece puzzle. So he had to really assemble this because it got scattered all around the world, basically, the information and where the true location of Atlantis really is, and not a remnant, a colony, or an outpost. So Professor Santos himself had to turn it really around 180 degrees on his thinking, but he was an honest scientist, and he didn't just, throw it up on a shelf or in the garbage can when he found out there was something really to it, but actually came out and really wrote the book, because originally he was going to write papers against the whole notion of Atlantis. And it's really a riddle. It's an enigma that's been long in coming, basically 11,600 years plus in coming and getting the information out. And so unfortunately, he passed away, Professor Mauricio Nunes dos Santos, in September of 2005, about less than 2 months after he released his book on Amazon.com. And by the way, our book is located up on Amazon.com. It's actually being distributed through Random House, and you should be able to find it at local bookstores or request it. And or else you can go up to our website, which has information on it too under the free articles, plus our book is listed there, and there's a link to it. And that's at www.atlan.org. It's the first 5 letters of Atlantis. It's a .org website. Michael?
Yes, sir. And now let me ask you this. What is it that has really, what is it about the research that has really opened your eyes to the fact that Atlantis did not only once exist, but that it's been found? I mean, what where I guess what has, because I still have people who say, "Oh no, there's no such thing as Atlantis. It's a story," and usually those people are pretty biblical. So that's why they don't want to, even look at Atlantis. But what tells you that it's real, that it's not just a story?
Well, great question, and I just want to preface the show as I usually do with you in saying that Professor Santos or myself, we're not here like for some type of political reason or religious reason or social reason. We're not looking to put one religious group against the other or one sect of one religious group against the other or anything like that. So we're mainly doing this from a scientific standpoint. That's where we're at on it, and really to get the truth out from a scientific standpoint. Because Professor Santos told me from the very beginning that this was really his gift to the world, and he really never made any money on it. He never made a cent, and he formed the corporation, which I'm the president of, called Atlantis Publications, and then I incorporated here in the state of Washington, Atlantis Publications Inc. To basically do further his research on this, and also to promote his books. As books, it'll be plural, and we just have the one out right now, and also work with the Indonesian scientists and other people to really get the word out to the whole world, because this is really about humanity. And in more directly answer to your question, what we found out is that the oceans over time got changed, the names of the oceans. In other words, what's happened, and it's kind of like this Malaysian airplane, what is it called, MH370, Malaysian Air?
Yeah.
We've been, they've been looking for this airplane over actually in the same basic area. And I don't know how many times I've heard on the radio broadcasts, on television and even regular AM and FM radio, that it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, and the problem is finding the right haystack to look in, or haystacks. They've been looking at all these different haystacks, and they're trying to find the right one. Well, it's the same thing with Atlantis, is that all this time we've been looking in the wrong haystack or haystacks for the needle or for Atlantis, and if that's the case, you'll never find it if it's in these other haystacks. If it's not in these other haystacks, but it's in a different one in a different place. And so what we found out is that Plato, when he put the information out, he encoded the word Atlantis, which is like a Greek word, in 3 different languages. One language was ancient Greek, the other one was Sanskrit, and the other, what we found out, is the language of the Atlanteans themselves. And also the pristine language in all of Southeast Asia, and that language is called Dravida. It's Dravidian. And I've had on the show in the past a couple of my colleagues, and they are in Singapore, and they speak a language called Tamil, which is a close derivative to Dravida. And so I know they spoke on your show before, and we're working and decoding some of the actual Dravida, which Professor Santos, by the way, spoke. And he, additionally to that, he actually spoke 14 languages. And I don't know if you mentioned about Professor Santos' background, but I'll go into that in a minute. But I want to finish up answering your question. We found out that it's that the word is highly encoded in these 3 different languages. And what it means is that, in short, that Atlantis is located on the opposite side of the world, antipodal, in the antipods, in the sunken mountain marshland on the opposite side of the world, and that's where it's really located. And the reason is this: the names of the oceans got changed over time. The Pacific Ocean is what I'm referring to, and that one specifically got it supposedly got discovered by Vasco Balboa. But where the change came in is with another explorer called Ferdinand Magellan, when he saw it through the Straits of Magellan through Argentina and Chile Way, and he saw it as a very peaceful and passive and calm ocean. So he named it Pacific. He named it like Pacifico, or in some senses you can use called Pacifica, because it comes from the infinitive Spanish Portuguese verb called pacificar, and it means to be passive and calm and peaceful. And so what we did is we either dropped the O or we dropped the A, and that's why it's called Pacific today. Mm-hmm. So that added a lot of confusion to things. And then also the Indian Ocean got changed. In fact, it used to be called even the Erythraean Sea before it was called the Oceans of the Atlanteans, like the Pacific Ocean was. And then the one that's called Atlantic Ocean today, it should have probably been called something like the English Ocean or something else, because it would make actually a lot more sense. And the Indian Ocean, as it's called today, should have probably been left, Atlantic Ocean or Atlantean Ocean. So everybody's thinking, like, if it's Atlantis, it's got to be located in or around the Atlantis Ocean,
right?
Or Atlantic Ocean. Do you follow me?
Oh, I'm following. Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, overall, that Atlantis was known to be located in the Orientale, or the Orient, not the Occidentale, or the Occident. And so this is one thing. It's actually where East meets West. It's what the whole thing about where East meets West is what it refers to. And that location, and I've described this on the show before, is where the Pacific Ocean meets the Indian Ocean, between the South China Sea and the Java Sea. And that region we discovered for the true location of Atlantis, not an outpost, a remnant, or colony, is Indonesia and the surrounding area of Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's a whole lot more to than that, but that's just kind of in a nutshell to mention to you, to lay it out for your listeners about really looking in the right haystack for once. Because if you keep on looking in the wrong ones, like in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, in and around Spain or Antarctica or the North Pole or some of these other areas, you'll never find it. That's one thing. The other thing is Atlantis had existed in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age. So because this goes back 11,600 years plus, 12,000, 13,000, 30,000, plus years back, in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age, the height of it. The question is, where on the face of this planet, in the height of the Pleistocene Ice Age, are you going to be able to locate or develop a civilization? And again, it's where civilization began, or the birthplace of civilization, or the cradle of civilization, is Atlantis, Indonesia. And where are you going to locate all those people in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age and be able to feed them? As Plato described it, had to be in a tropical climate, and the area or the size of the continent was that of Libya, which was all the northern Africa at the time, not just Libya as it is today geographically, and Asia Minor, which is like Western, Turkey combined. So it's a huge area. The basic area is really, so people have a better grasp on it, is the size of like the United States with Alaska and Hawaii combined. It would take all that and even a little bit more for the size of the subcontinent, which is really the subcontinent of Asia, Southeast Asia. And you can see that described on our book too.
Mm-hmm. So now I would ask, how are you sure that it's Atlantis and not another possible continent of some sort that might have sank? And I know that question comes up a lot. So
sure, and that's why a lot of like your listeners really need to read into our book. But I'll lay out a few things. As Plato, first of all, described, or Plato for your international listeners, described in his dialogues, the Critias and Timaeus dialogues, and that's where we learned of the story from. He actually, at the time, learned of it too from Solon, the great lawmakers of Athens, when he was on a vacation to Egypt and talking to the Egyptian priests. I want to mention that that's where the information comes from, but we also went further and found out that the Egyptians ended up getting that information from the Hindus in like India, and then the Hindus ended up getting it from the Atlanteans themselves, in this case in Southeast Asia, Atlantis, Indonesia. So we traced it back to that. The thing is that this location is a location that is mountainous. It does have volcanic activity, and that was partly responsible for the destruction of Atlantis, in fact, a major way. But also, it has the things like, the coconuts and the bananas and the different ancient types of woods and the frankincense, which I saw a frankincense tree when I was actually up there, actually on the Gunung Padang megalithic Pyramid Mountain site. Was actually up there as well, and they also frankincense from the trees come from Sumatra, which now called Sumatra today. And so there's a whole lot of things that they were able to obtain from this particular location. The other thing was the different minerals, the gold, the silver, the copper, the tin, things they had to make all sorts of weapons and things on. Hey, I'm getting a message from Dr. Ali Akbar and about signing on. Have you logged on to any of the other guests coming up?
No, I haven't yet. Do I have their?
Yeah, I sent it over to you on the email.
Oh, okay. Well, let me ask them to hold on for just about another 5 minutes, and then on the break, I'll make sure I do that.
All right, I'll try to send a message.
Okay. Thank you. And everybody, again, we'll take calls a little later in the show.
Hello, Michael?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. I don't know what happened. Somehow I lost you. I'm trying to get the other two gentlemen on with us, but it's not. It keeps saying call failed. So I think it's because they're not listed as being online right now.
They're online, but let me get their Mr. Ali Akbar, Dr. Ali Akbar's email to you. I may give you the wrong Skype one. I'm going to put it on your Skype board,
okay.
And this way you should be able to send that to him, or else I can connect to them. If that might be better.
Sure, if you want to do that, that's fine.
Hopefully, I can do this. Let me just see what I can do.
Okay.
I may have to call you back actually to do that. So let me see if I can do this here, but I may have to call you back actually.
Okay, that's fine. If you want to do that, that works out.
I'll call you right back.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fine. All right, folks. So there you have it. So we're going to be held up a few minutes here. That's live radio. This is what happens when you don't have people doing everything for you, and you actually have to do it all yourself. This is what happens. So, but I don't mind. It's reality. This is the kind of thing that goes on. Now, if we were on some big FM station, it'd be throwing something on and trying to fake it. But here we go. Let's see. All right, Frank.
Okay.
Yeah, there you are. All right, so we're good.
Let me see if I can do this. I'm hoping I can figure out exactly how to connect them on here. I may have to do it from my other computer if I can't do it here, but one way or the other, we will do it. So right. Let me...
well, no pressure.
Yeah. Okay, here's something here. I'll do it, I think. Let's see. I think I found what I need. And here we go.
Yeah, it gets tricky sometimes. We're getting her done, folks. We're adding our other two guests in here, so just bear with us.
Hello.
Dr. Akbar?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Frank Joseph Hoff and also Michael Vera. Can you hear Michael?
Hello. How are you, Doctor?
Well, I had him for a second. Let's try again.
Sometimes if somebody's using Wi-Fi too, that'll knock them off. Something could interfere with the signal.
Dr. Akbar?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is Frank Joseph Hoff. Can you also hear Michael Vera? Go ahead, Michael.
Hello, Doctor. How are you?
Hello, fine, thanks.
It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Maybe what I could do is I could bring on Dr. Danny Hillman, too, at the same time to make sure we've got him.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just see if I can do that, too. If he's on, let me just see if I can add him as well. Then we'll have it all.
Okay. All right. And tomorrow night, folks, as I said, I've got Dr. Michael Nuccitelli joining me. Not quite sure what direction we're going tomorrow night. But I will get it up on the website sometime after tonight's show, so you'll be able to check that out. And I think we're doing something a little different tomorrow night, him and I.
Hey, Dr. Hillman? Dr. Hillman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is
loud and clear.
Can you hear Michael okay?
Hello, Doctor.
Yes, I hear Michael here.
Hi.
Hi, Michael.
Okay, we tried to bring everybody on to make sure we got the connections good. I want to let you know Dr. Ali Akbar is also on here as well. And you probably should go with at least an interview first with Dr. Akbar, Michael, because he needs to leave a little earlier.
Oh, okay. Dr. Akbar, I
Hello.
guess, hello. Let's start out, if you wouldn't mind, giving a little background, and we can start there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm an archaeologist. I'm a lecturer in University of Indonesia.
Great. And, well, what I guess you're involved in the Atlantis, helping find or discover Atlantis as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, in fact, I made several research in Gunung Padang, and Gunung Padang sites is hello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're here.
Yeah. The chronology of Gunung Padang is around 15,000, 10,000 BC, and perhaps if we talk about Atlantis, it is near the chronology of Atlantis. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 11,600 BC.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. I hear something in the background. I don't know if someone's got the show rolling.
Yeah. Dr. Hillman and also Dr. Akbar, if you were running the streaming audio off of his website, you might turn that all off.
Yeah, I'm just turning it off. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, actually, wherever he would like to go would be great. I'd like to learn more about his discoveries and go off of that, if we could.
So, Dr. Akbar, you might explain a little bit about your research and your investigation and maybe excavation, that sort of thing, of Gunung Padang pyramid megalithic site.
Yeah, okay. Gunung Padang megalithic sites actually were found in 1914 by Dutch archaeologists, and after that, several research made in that site. However, there are no absolute chronology in that site. Yeah. Our research since 2011, 2012, and 2013 made several carbon data analysis, and from that analysis, we have sample and we have proof that Gunung Padang sites, perhaps the chronology is around 15,000 BC, yeah, and some sample is older than that. Perhaps that's the resume.
Yeah, and what he means, Michael, by being older is that depending on how far they drilled the core samples into the site and done the testing in a couple of different laboratories, one in Jakarta, Indonesia, other one in Miami, Florida, they found out that they tend to date maybe as much as 22,000 BC, definitely over 20, but maybe as much as 22. But, you know, depending on how far you actually, or the core sample in. And so they're coming up with some dates that just seem to go out and out, you know. So it just depends how far down they may drill, may go older than that. We just don't know yet.
Now, he studies ancient catastrophic events, correct? Things along those lines. So have we learned anything about, you know, I know we know about the Ice Age and things like that, but have we learned any more about what's happened to Earth in the past and, you know, where we might be headed as far as the quake line or the oh, it slips my mind, but earthquakes and things like that.
I think I could help you with that, Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, this is you're asking the geological question, I would think. So, Dr. Ali Akbar is in my team, the one that, that's right. We are studying the catastrophic event in the past, and I think what's well, in geology, what is the most known, the global catastrophic events is one is the meteoric impact, which happened in like 60 million years ago, that diminished the dinosaurs races, I could say. And the one that really near us is the Toba eruption. That is 70,000 years ago. And we know from geology, also archaeology, fossil records, as well as the DNA research, that the human being, the modern human being, has been exists in the Earth since about 195,000 years ago, at least 150,000 years ago, based on the DNA. So when the Toba eruptions occurred, the human has been living on Earth's very long time, about like 130,000. Yeah, so it's a long time ago. Then I would think that the human population as well as the culture has been destroyed by the Toba eruption at that time. That's why we only know the record of the human repopulated the Earth, the human migration, the Earth since like 60,000. It's known as the out of Africa theory, where human beings migrated all over the world. The question is that also another global catastrophic event after the Toba eruption? The answer is yes. The geology knows the time, the epoch, I could say. It's called the Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas. The Younger Dryas is the epoch that happened around 12,900 to 11,000, about 11,600, if you believe it. Is that when the Earth is warming up since the last glacial maximum 20,000 years ago, in 12,900, it suddenly dropped. The temperature suddenly dropped, began the ice age again for like 13 or 1,500 years. And then at the end of the Younger Dryas, which is around 11,600, which in fact is coincide with the time when the Atlantis destroyed by the global flood, and the temperature rise suddenly, like 5 to 10 degree, right? Hello?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm
Did you hear
following.
me?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. So, that's the fact. So the Younger Dryas, when the temperature suddenly dropped, the ice age for 1,500, and then the temperature rise again suddenly, could be in a few years, could be very instant, rising 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, the ice melting, the global sea level rise suddenly. That is 11,600. This is still a frontier research. People still researching what's caused the Younger Dryas. And I think what people thinking about the meteoric impact in the beginning of the Younger Dryas, which caused the Earth temperature drop. And people speculating about the very huge the solar plasm, the solar plasm burst that's just heating up the Earth suddenly, so that rise the temperature. But the fact is, during that time, there are lots of species died, especially in North America. The large mammals died, like mammoths, stegosaurs, as well as the cultures, the ancient cultures called clawfish culture in North U.S. So that event it's on the same time as the Atlantis diminished, 11,600. I don't think that's a coincidence. And what is very interesting is the culture. Our culture now, people believe it's developed since the early Holocene, after the Younger Dryas. It's developed slowly, you know, beginning in the beginning in the first agriculture and stuff, and it's developed, become the advanced culture like us. That is since about 10,000, 11,000 years ago, and that's what we believe. And I don't believe it. So, do you believe it? That's the human is only has the civilization since that time. So, what happened before that? And that is the big question. And that's actually what the catastrophic research, our catastrophic research about. So, the Atlantis is part of it. I don't think it's the only one. The Atlantis is very famous because it's, I would think, it's one of the famous Ice Age civilization that is saved by legend people, Plato. So that's why it's so famous. So we are not really, we are not just focusing on the Atlantis. What our big hypothesis is, we think there is the high civilization on the Ice Age and beyond, and even before. So that is the main things. And our research in Gunung Padang, that adding the evidence that there is the high ancient civilization before the Younger Dryas.
Right. So
that's, I think that's what it's about.
Yeah, so I agree. I think we've been on this planet for a very long time, a lot longer than they lead us to believe. And I believe there's probably many civilizations that came and went. And now I'm curious, based on your research, do you see any signs that what's going on with our planet today? I mean, we hear about a rise in earthquakes. Obviously, the weather is out of whack. Do you see any similarities between then and now?
That's a very hard question. We have lots of earthquakes, tsunami, and in the last decades in Indonesia, there are lots of big eruption volcanoes, and people wondering, is that leading to another global catastrophe? We don't know. We hope not. Yeah. But the Earth, it's a cycle. If the global flood that has occurred in about 11,600, it could happen again. It's a cycle. But when, we don't know.
I see.
Yeah. But the loading and unloading of the ocean, like happened in 11,600, is not like independent event. It's also triggered the volcanic and the earthquake events because it caused the imbalance in the earth crust, the loading and unloading of the mass. So you could imagine what happened in the Younger Dryas. There's a meteoric impact, there's a ice age suddenly, and then great flood and flowing by the earthquake, volcano. Is basically it's apocalypse for the human culture. So
sure,
it is very logic that our culture now is only now since then, since the catastrophic. And the records before, it's like diminished, it's vanished.
I see. All right. Frank?
Yes, a couple of things. I'm not sure, but I think Dr. Ali Akbar may have dropped off, so I don't think he's there. Are you there, Doctor, still? Akbar? Yeah, I believe I think he did drop off, but I may have to see if I can reconnect him. That's one thing. The other thing is, too, and this is where Dr. Nata Wijaya, where we may differ with him, is that Professor Santo's idea is that the Krakatoa volcano was what also went off at 11,600 years ago, and actually separating what was the entire island of Java or Jawa, which is now Sumatra and either Java or Jawa, depending on how you say it, what language, It was all together. It was known as Upper Java and Lower Java, and it was all connected. But the Krakatoa volcano is what ended up separating it or sawing it in half, and that's what the word Krakatoa or Krakatau actually means, to saw in half. So we think that Professor Santos and myself, that this caused the catastrophic event at 11,600 years ago, besides the one that was when Dr. Nata Wijaya said on the, it's about 75,000 years ago on the Toba volcano. Both, by the way, are super volcanoes and super volcanoes calderas, just like the one in Yellowstone National Park. So they're a lot bigger than, let's say, our one here in the state of Washington, Mount St. Helens, that went off back in 1980. And so we see that as ending also ending the Pleistocene Ice Age. And again, we may differ on this. So we need to really also do on the ground an investigation across the Sunda Strait, which I've sent pictures to you in the past, Michael, regarding there might be perhaps a crater that goes across there about 215 kilometers across, that Dr. Robin Harger came up with based on when the Google Earth came out, that he started to do some investigation there. But really, his investigation needs to be done on the ground. By the way, his Dr. Data Wijaya's book is called Plato Never Lied. Atlantis is in Indonesia, and that can be found on Amazon.com, by the way.
Okay. And I have that linked up on my homepage as well. So I guess one question I would have is there any evidence that possibly what caused this catastrophic event could have come from space, maybe?
Yes, I think is the solar plasm burst, the high burst of the solar plasm. I think is the hypothesis for the end of the Younger Dryas, right, Frank?
Well, there's a kind of a difference in opinion on that, which you may have versus myself and Professor Santos. See, the thing is, Professor Santos thought, his thinking on this whole thing is that Indonesia and the surrounding area is the most volcanically active area probably in the entire world. It's like the major part of the Ring of Fire. And he thought it was more prevalent to have that a volcano would be going off. And there's been several of them going off, including when I was there. I've been to Indonesia 3 times now. And all these different volcanoes are going off, depending on whether it's in Sumatra, on island Sumatra, or on the main island of Java, and so on. And he just felt it was a lot more prevalent than actually meteors coming in and causing this kind of damage or destruction, or causing the seismic activity. So it's that's why, as I mentioned before, we really need to get down on the ground and do an investigation, and hopefully your team, Danny, will help out in doing this, because I don't know if you explained this before, but he and Dr. Akbar are the members of the presidential task force to President Yudhoyono, and Dr. Hilman Natajiwaya is the lead scientist for doing that. So it's going to take time, and we need to investigate. But these are kind of the different theories of thought, and so what we really need to do is get to the data on the ground and piece this together a little closer. So I mean, we don't know. I mean, Professor Santos could be wrong about this, but he was pretty certain of it because of basically the sawing in half of what was a huge island of Java at one time. And hey, by the way, just for your listeners to know, if we were to find something, that had writing on it in Atlantis, Indonesia, let's say here, it's not going to necessarily say the word Atlantis right across of it.
And I was going to ask you that too. I was going to ask now, when if you are able to explore, at the floor there, or wherever it is, off the coast there, what would you need to see to confirm and prove to everybody that this is it?
Well, I think, and this is what maybe you're doing too, Dr. Hillman, is the the carbon dating would be one thing. Also, what we actually would find. The other thing is there's any writing on it, and there's a good chance that writing could be some type of a Sanskrit or a Dravida type of language. We're working on also, it's going to take a little time, decoding the Indus Valley script up in the area between Pakistan and in India, where they found it was actually more India at the time, back in the time of Atlantis. But there's certain things you're going to have to take a look at. I mean, you don't know for certain what they're going to come up with. But here's what we can tell you, and Dr. Hillman can get into this, is that they're going to start doing an excavation, not on the outside or exterior of Gunung Padang pyramid, which, by the way, is located about 20 kilometers southwest of a city called Cianjur, Cianjur, in West Java, Indonesia. And so he can tell you about what he's going to do on that, and then it's a question if there's anything found in there besides out in the not only the Sunda Strait, but really the Java Sea and the Sunda Shelf. And so the Sunda Shelf is what we're concerned about as far as like in the riverbeds and things like that. And I think that's what your question is on. And we'll be working on some 2D data to identify the actual rivers, and then some 3D data, which we're going to be working on as far as identifying an anomalies. That's where Hans and Rose of Verichovens of Maritime Explorers will work on that type of part. We mentioned that last time we were on the show with them. So, or at least Hans did. And so I think maybe what you might want to do is ask Dr. Hillman about his plans for excavating inside Gunung Padang Pyramid.
Okay. All right. He's not with us yet, right?
No. You can talk to Dr. Hillman on that.
Oh, Dr. Hillman. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to hear about it, and of course I've got some more questions too. But go ahead.
Sure, Michael. Okay. So here it is. We're talking about the ancient civilizations on the Ice Age before the Holocene, and about the Atlantis, of course. But for the scientific proof, we have to looking for the hard facts, and Gunung Padang is one of them. We have to find something like a great monument that showing there is the high civilization that could build the great monument like Gunung Padang. So let me explain briefly about the Gunung Padang. The Gunung Padang is the megalithic site that before it's just believed to be just on top of the hills. The megalithic site that has an area about 900 meters square, not very like amazing, but when we research it, it's not like that. The megalithic site, the structures of the stones cover the entire hills, about 100 meters high, even more. And what more amazing is that when we do the geophysical exploration using geoelectric survey, the GPR, ground penetration radar survey, as well as seismic tomography, and we also has a drilling, the core drilling goes to like several tens of meters on that hill, and we conclude that the megalithic site is actually a large structure, a monument, like a pyramids. It's like the Mayan pyramid shape, but it's not a little bit different. But it's a great monument. It's a great stone structures comprised of it's called the columnar drains rocks. And in the core of the hills is the lava, the lava body, andesitic lava body, and which has been shaped also become part of the monument. So it's a huge structures, and what's amazing is that it's not just like one layer, it's like at least 3 layers. The first layer on the core, it has been dated more than 10,000 years ago, like Frank said. It might be up to 10,000, 20,000. We don't know yet. We don't have the exact ages yet. And the second layer is about 7,000 years ago. And the first layer on top is about, it's younger, like 3,000 years old or even younger. So if this is true, if the age is correct, when we have more results in the future, so this is a great monument that has witnesses the civilizations evolutions in the ice age through 1,000 years old. So the Gunung Padang will add to the evidence of the high civilization on the ice age. Talking about the destruction, what caused the destruction of this high civilization on the ice age? Frank said that based on Santos' hypothesis, there's a great volcano eruptions in Sunda Strait, the Krakatoa, which might be similar to the Toba eruption. That might be, but right now the geology data is still sparse. We know about the 1883 Krakatoa eruptions, which is very devastating throughout the world. And we also see the other caldera on that area. The first one, it has a diameter to like 5 to 10 kilometers long. But the larger one, which is ancient, more ancient, it could be up to tens of kilometers, 50 kilometers big. So it could be a big caldera. But right now, we don't know the ages yet. We know that below the Krakatoa deposit, there was the other one, which is thick, even thicker than the Krakatoas, but we don't have the ages yet. But it's thousands years ago. So, as Frank said, we have to do the research, which I'll do in the future to dig up about this Krakatoa eruption.
Yeah, one more thing on that too, and Michael and Danny, is that Professor Santos mentions in his book and some other things on our website about that. He thought it could be Krakatoa most probably, but it could possibly be even another volcano, that might be in the area as well. So, right now, basically, it's a knock Krakatoa that's there, that's kind of sprung up, which is what they call the child or the son of the Krakatoa volcano. But these volcanoes are calderas, and they tend to collapse, but also they tend to form other volcanoes, which are like sons or daughters of the great Krakatoa volcano. And again, as he mentioned, we know about the one in 1883. The one we were trying to search for, and based on the data, the evidence on the ground, and that's where Dr. Hillman's going to come in on this. We gotta work on that, and because I know what people are wanting here is they want physical evidence. They want that to see things like the pyramid showing the physical evidence. Also, I believe that I had on your show before with the giant elephants that Atlantis was famous for fighting wars and battles, are like the stegodons. They're not woolly mammoths, but they're about the size of a woolly mammoth or a mastodon. They're over in the Geology Museum in Bandung, on the island of Java in West Java, and I had pictures that you may still have on your website about that. So I think that's just another piece of the evidence. And so I think there's a lot more evidence to be found, both on the islands of Java, in Sumatra, I think maybe in Bali, and in a lot of other places. And so this is all needs to add up, because people, again, want the physical evidence, and that's what we're searching for, including in the Sunda Strait, in the Java Sea, the Sunda Shelf, in the South China Sea, all this area, and that's part where the Barracudas are going to come in there and help out with that as we start to identify these type of anomalies. So it's a process. And we've got a lot of things that are mentioned in our book and on the website, and Dr. Hillman's may come up with a few things. And it's going to take a research study to really nail this whole thing down and get to the bottom of it. And hopefully a lot of that will start with the Gunung Padang megalithic mountain pyramid, which, by the way, you might describe how the size of that it is as compared to the Khufu pyramid at the Giza Plateau in Egypt.
Yeah. Hello, Frank?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, so the size of the Gunung Padang structures is about, what we know is about 100-meter high. So it's a bit smaller than the Giza. Giza is 130 meters high. So, but it's different structures. It's comprised with the columnar joint rocks, and I would think it's much, much older than that. So that is why make the Gunung Padang special. And one thing also on that is, and the volcano on the Sunda Strait, Krakatau, the source of destruction on that area is not just the volcano, but also the megathrust. The megathrust is the subduction zone earthquake. That's like the 2004 Aceh Andaman earthquake, or the Sendai in Japan, 2011 earthquake. So it could also happen in the Sunda Strait. We have even simulated the big earthquake there, the megathrust. If there's a 9.5 magnitude earthquake in that time, at that area in the Sunda Strait segments, it will create the huge tsunami that come to the Sunda Straits, like more than several tens of meter high tsunami, and it lasts for hours. It's more than 6 hours. So if we look into the Plato description about the destruction of the Atlantis, it said that it occurred a huge earthquake, a big earthquake, and followed by the flood, the tsunami. So that's also one the possibility. It might be the megathrust that triggered at that time and destroy the whatever kingdoms on that area.
Yeah, I'm going to maybe correct me on this, Dr. Hillman. The size of the pyramid, as far as an altitude, is a little bit maybe shorter than the one in the Giza Plateau. Is that correct?
That's right, but that's up to now. We haven't really dig into the more than 100 meters. It could be, as big as the Giza. It could be more, but the hills itself is about 200 meter high. But what has been explored intensively is the 100 meters from the top. We still don't know what's happened and below that.
And also the size, the massive size, the actual mass. Would you say that's larger than the one at Khufu Pyramid, the Great Pyramid at Giza?
The mass, well, if we think the structure goes to beyond the 100 meters, it could be as big as that. But what really important here is like what you mentioned about the chambers, the existence, the last chambers below the Gunung Padang. It's not one chamber. There are many of them, even like 2 levels of chambers. The deeper level, which is on the depth from like 35 meters to 60 meters, is huge, like 40 meters wide, like 5 to 10 meters in height, and it could contain very valuable information that uncover the history at beyond the Holocene in the Ice Age. So that's most important for the history. Well, I hope we could find that.
Yeah, Michael, I think what Dr. Hillman's saying is that it's possible that the size, the mass, whatever, could be bigger even than the Khufu Pyramid. I have a feeling it's going to end up being that way because they really got to get down in the base of it. It goes down quite a ways, and how far down really needs to be determined. The other thing is, too, you may have heard of a thing called the Hall of Records, Michael?
Yes, I have.
The Hall of Records, I like that.
Yeah, there's a very high possibility, not a certainty though, that this area inside one of the chambers in the Gunung Padang Pyramid may contain the Hall of Records that maybe Edgar Casey and some others, have talked about in the past here.
That would be truly amazing, and I would love to be alive when something like that would be discovered, because that's what we all want to know, right? We want to know our history. Where'd we come from?
Yep.
Yeah, because I think there was supposed to be like 3 places they were supposed to be stored. One was like maybe in Egypt, let's say at the Giza Plateau or someplace there. I think the other one is supposed to be in like Guatemala, And then the other one they weren't quite certain about, but I think it's going to be in Indonesia myself. I thought so for a while. So, but we'll all have to find out. And maybe that might be coming sooner than later. Dr. Hillman, when are you planning to start the excavation into the Gunung Padang?
Yeah, we hope we will start again soon, like next month. We hope, and we are planning to, dig deep into that this year. We hope before August, even. So it will come soon, very soon.
What's important, Michael, too, is I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but President Yudhoyono and the Indonesian Presidential Task Force and others, media, and a lot of other people ended up going up there. And so there's photos that we may have on your website. I hope you were able to post some of those and some of the other data that I showed you, that sent you, regarding Dr. Hillman's work on the Gunung Padang pyramid, on the geoelectric testing and the ground penetrating radar and those type of things. He, when he went up there, gave permission and a blessing probably to the excavation into the Gunung Padang pyramid, because it's important. It's not just important for Indonesia, it's important for the whole world, because what this project really is about humanity and where civilization began. And I've mentioned this before, I don't believe it began in Iraq or Persia or what they call Mesopotamia or Samaria, in the Iraq area. I don't believe that was where it is. I believe it is actually in Atlantis, Indonesia, and the surrounding area. Malaysia is part of that too, and so on. And it spread out from there, not the other way around. And one of the things that they do have, and it even occurs today, is they have the staples. They have volcanically rich soil, even though they have volcanoes that cause destruction. There's a good part to that. There's a positive side, that's volcanically rich soil. And the Atlanteans, or Atlantis, in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age, and even today, they can grow as many as 3 crops per year of rice. Most years it's 2, but in the good years, they can do 3. And the question is, and you're asking me this earlier in the show, is where on this planet, on the face of the Earth, in the height of the Pleistocene Ice Age, on the advanced civilization of Atlantis, could they support a population of over 20 million people on an ice cube? It had to be in a tropical area, and that tropical area ends up being along or close to the equator, which exactly is where is the situation today. Hasn't changed, and it goes right through Sumatra, and Java is just slightly below that. So we also found out too that not only did the latitude went through Atlantis, Indonesia, but formerly even the longitude, the meridian, went through it until they changed it to Greenwich, England, which is something like, I can't remember, but it's like maybe 12 or 15 kilometers east of London at the Greenwich Observatory. That's why it's there. But before that, we found, and that's because by convention, it was established there, and also because England was an imperial power that also had the most powerful navy in the world at one time. And so they located there. But that wasn't the only time it changed. You see, before that, it was in Paris, France, is where the meridian. Before that, it was in Canary Islands, because they cut off the Canary Islands with Atlantis. And before that, maybe someplace else. But the place where it originated was actually in Atlantis, Indonesia, where the meridian and the latitude was at 0 degrees latitude, 0 degrees longitude, right over Sumatra, right over Atlantis, Indonesia, right over Atlantis at that time. So we've been tracing this back. It's more like an X marks the spot. That's not the only reason there, but it had to be in a place. Look at the height of the Pleistocene Ice Age. It was pretty hard to support a population of even a few thousand people, let alone over 20 million, if it wasn't near the equator. So anything above 30 degrees north latitude or 30 degrees south latitude, as far as I'm concerned, and Professor Santos and some of my other colleagues, it's out of the question.
I see.
So when people mention these things are like it might be up in Spain or or I don't know, like the North Pole, the South Pole, or Antarctica, or whatever. It doesn't make sense because even in Antarctica, they've taken core samples, scientists in situ, and brought back those core samples, and they date well over 1 million years old, and maybe as much as 2 million years old.
Wow!
And it's been there for a long time. It's not like you can, I mean, they have trouble today, even supporting in Antarctica, let's say a population of 1,000 people. I mean, they have to fly supplies in and airplanes and get in and out of there, everything else, let alone 20 million.
Yeah, and imagine an ice age. It would be 1 million times worse than that, wouldn't it?
Well, on average, it's about 5 degrees centigrade, I think, lower than it is today. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot colder and a lot harder to do it. So, it doesn't make logical, scientific sense at all to be in a place like that, let alone some other places on Earth. So that's why another reason why we think it's there. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons. I could spend a whole show 2 or 3 hours just going through all the different reasons why it's in Atlantis, Indonesia, and the surrounding area, not in, let's say in England or Spain or in the Mediterranean and all these different other places that people come up with, including in the Caribbean over here, or I should say over where you are.
Now, let me ask you this. With all I've got a few good questions here. I'll start with this one. With the geological work or research that has been done, are you able to tell like a pattern of ice ages or a pattern of pole shift or things like that where we could actually maybe get a rough idea of how far along we are now and what we should have to prepare for? Maybe I'm just curious if you've been able to
I think I will elaborate what Frank said about the Indonesia. We have to understand the Indonesian islands in the Ice Age when the global sea level is about 130 meters below now. So at that time, the Sumatra, Java, and Kalimantan is one big island. It's called the Sundaland. the Java Sea now at that time it's a huge flat area which is very fertile. It has a huge river like Niles, and also the shallow sea between the Sumatra and Kalimantan now, the Karimata Strait, also the same thing. And if you look into the geography, you see that this fertile flat lines area, it's surrounded by the mountains, which the river that comes with that, the stream. So it's really beautiful areas. And the temperature, like Frank said, is about 5 to 10 degrees below. So like Jakarta, now it's about 30 degrees. Then it's only 20 degrees. It's very comfortable. So I would say geographically or geologically, it's also very rich on mines like golds, silvers, oils, tin, whatever. There are lots of it, and also the vegetation kind of stuff. So I would say that, strictly speaking about geography and geological speaking, the Sundalands in Indonesia, it has everything to support a large population, develop the high cultures there. But at the same time, it's also ideal to bury them because of the volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, and all other stuff. So it has an extreme between the merits, the very rich nature, and the destruction. So that's the nature of the Sundalands in Indonesia.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's some positives and there's some negatives, and so it's balanced out. Right. I mean, so, but what they did is they rise to great prominence. The civilization of Atlantis, at least Atlantis proper, versus Lemurian Atlantis.
Okay, and in other words, so then can we expect, like, say, every 11,000 years that the Earth goes through something like that, where incredible temperature change and massive flood?
Well, the glacial and interglacial cycles is like around 100,000 cycles. It's a big cycles, but between that, there are lots of erratic changes, like in the younger dryas. Now we are talking about the global warming, you know, the temperature rising up. But if you're looking into the graphic, it is also possible in the future, maybe in the near future, the temperature will drop again, like as the Earth cycles response become the ice age. We don't know that when that happened, but it will happen. And to be frankly, I'd love to be cold again, because it will come to the situation where the Atlantis was, the Sundaland.
Well,
I'm sorry about that.
I appreciate that. With these megalithic sites now, were they designed in a way where they were, you know, sometimes these sites are designed in a way where they're meant to be seen from up above?
Do you mean the location? The location is very unique. It's very beautiful. Looking at the volcano now, it's got the Gede mountain volcano surrounding by beautiful, beautiful mountains area. And what also important in the Gunung Padang megalithic sites is the design, the structures, the monument design is not like the other big archaeological sites like Borobudur or Prambanan, where it built in the Hindu and Buddhism's area. So Gunung Padang, I would think, is the first structures, ancient structures in Indonesia that has been found, that probably the original cultures in Indonesia, the more ancient one.
Yeah, I want to mention something else to your listeners in case they weren't really aware of this. Many of them probably are. But basically these pyramids, and this is like a piece of evidence, tend to be signatures of Atlantis. So you have pyramids all around the world, and also you have different types of sites like in Peru and the Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu.
Yeah, and they use a terracing type of a structure for the monuments down there, or the temples and the agriculture and everything. And they also use terracing over in Bali. But those are all signatures of Atlantis. What they're doing when they use the terracing type of techniques, which is really a really advanced technique, is they're using that to channel and control the water for erosion, and also control the water going into the different types of temples or structures for living, so they can actually bathe and have, you know, bath in water and things like that. But mainly, a lot of this is to really control the erosion, you know, from the water coming down onto the landscape. And so it's controlling the water from the erosion, plus also controlling it to go into the areas they want it into. And so this type of technology is, and the hydraulics that's behind it all, is a signature of Atlantis, as well as in the capital city of Atlantis, where all the great ships came into port. They had concentric rings and the canals and things, but this is all, you know, with Atlantis. And we found that the original Pillars of Hercules is not located in the Gibraltar Strait. That's just like an archaeotype or like maybe it's a decoy. Let's put it that way. The original one that we found was between Mount Agun on the island of Bali and Mount Rinjani on the island of Lombok. Right through the Lombok Strait is where all the great ships came in down what we call the Wallace Line today. And they came into port through that into the capital city of Atlantis, where the great ships could come into, and where the water was deep enough and they could load and unload, you know, the goods. So as they were a worldwide empire, those Pillars of Hercules or Pillars of Atlantis later changed as different straits opened up, and they ended up going over to the Malacca Strait. And at one point it was like Mount Krakatoa and Mount Toba flanking that, the Moluccas. Later on, it changed around, and as the Sunda Strait opened up, and then the Pillars of Hercules changed over to be flanked by the Krakatoa volcano and also Mount Dimple. So these things changed, but the original gateway or Pillars of Hercules was between the island of Bali, which Mount Agun is located on, and also the island of Lombok, which is Mount Rinjani. By the way, when I flew over there to go to the World Cultural Forum, where Dr. Hillman and myself sat together in a symposium there, I actually flew over and saw Mount Rinjani, so from the aircraft, which was kind of interesting. These mountains, by the way, are fairly high. They're like over or close to 3,000 meters high. Wow. So they're fairly good size in height.
I see. So I guess that's basically where my question was at, is whether they would mean something, say even back then when they were first designed from the air. You know, sometimes there's, you know, you could be in a large area of land and not notice something, but then once you get in the air, you see it, like the old runways that have been found and things like that. So I'm curious, is there speculation or evidence towards some sort of flying machines and maybe, if not an extraterrestrial race, maybe a superhuman race? Because how did they build all this stuff, and how did everybody around the world know the designs to build them as well? I mean, we've got, like you said, pyramids everywhere.
Yeah, you're kind of referring like to the Nazca lines down in, I think it's in Peru, and also in, I think it's Argentina down that way, maybe part of Bolivia and so on, and Chile. I think Chile is maybe one of the main places. Yeah, I mean, things look different from the air. A lot of times you can't see something on the ground until you get up in the air, and then all of a sudden it appears. And there's all different types of carvings down there of, you know, different, like spiders and animals and things you can see on the from the air that you can't see on the ground, you know. So the question I have too, also maybe to follow up with yours, Michael, to Dr. Hillman, is how do you think they got all those? Because there's a lot of stones up on there. I mean, like thousands of them up on the Gunung Padang pyramid. There's thousands of these stones that also tend to, when you hit them, they also send out a musical type tone. They kind of vibrate. But how do you think they got all those up there? And maybe what the purpose for those are, Dr. Hillman?
Yeah, the columnar joint rock, right?
Yeah.
The source of the columnar joint rocks there, well, it's still mysterious. We looking for the source of the rocks surrounding the sites, like tens of kilometers radius. We couldn't find that, and we think it's the best answer for that. The source is on the mountain itself, and then, you know, below the sides, but it has been mined, like about 15 meters thick. It has been mined before, and that rocks become the source for building that structure. So it's not far from that side, I would think. And I could also mention that Gunung Padang is not alone. It should be more like that. And indeed, we have the other megalithic sites surrounding the Gunung Padang in the vast areas, but it has not, you know, the research on them is still sparse. So in the future, we will research all of the megalithic sites surrounding Gunung Padang, and as well as in the other islands, like in Sumatra and in Sulawesi. If you know about the huge megalithic sites there, it's called the Palindo Monument, which also has not been researched. So evidence is all over the Indonesia, but just the research that has not been intensive yet. I would think also, if there's any high ancient civilization, I think the core of the civilization should be under the sea, the Java Sea and the Karimata Sea, and we haven't explored that. But we did find a very interesting fact, not from Indonesia, but from the Gulf of Thailand. One of the member of our team, Dr. Anand Bhatia, has an access to the oil exploration seismic 3D data. And below the ocean in the Gulf of Thailand, like 20 to 30 kilometers, not kilometers, meters below the sea, we see the irrigation pattern, maybe feed rice or whatever, but it covers almost the entire Gulf of Thailand. So that is probably the evidence of the high civilizations that has been buried under the sea. And I would think that we could find the same things in Java Sea and Kalimantan Sea in Indonesia. That will be our future worlds.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I got a follow-up question, Michael.
Sure.
There's other megalithic sites around, as you mentioned. Have you carbon dated those? And if you have, can you confirm maybe some of those might be artificial and based on the carbon dating, and how far back is that carbon dating as far as the dating goes?
Are you questioning me, Frank?
Yeah, I'm asking you the question.
Yeah.
Other than Gunung Padang, have you found some other sites that also are potentially artificial, and what dating have you been able to date some of those to?
Yes, that's a very important question. The answer is no. There is no carbon dating for other megalithic sites in Indonesia, including the one that near Dempo, which is like 1,000 megalithic sites there, and also Sulawesi. The archaeology now is just put a standard default ages, like 2,500 years BC, but it's not based on the carbon dating. So yes, it's the carbon dating analysis is very important to date various ages of the megalithic sites in Indonesia, Frank.
So you're saying really this is the only one that you've got, and especially the one that goes back at least more than, well, let's say more than 12,000 years old.
That's correct.
Yeah, but nothing else really dates to that as Gunung Padang then, right, at this time?
You don't have a date yet now, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Michael?
All right, guys, let's take a break here because what makes anybody think that the powers that be wouldn't say, nope, we are not releasing that information to anybody and make you hush-hush about it? And either one of you.
I'm sure you are.
And Dr. Hillman, maybe to answer that question because you're on the presidential task force for Indonesia.
Well, good guy to
ask.
What
is the question? It's not become public, but it become hush-hush? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, say if you did locate something crucial like the Hall of Records, what makes anybody think that? I mean, how would we get this information out to people and assure that you wouldn't be immediately shut up, I guess?
No, I would think we will publish whatever inside it. Sure, it's a scientific values. It should be available for anybody in the world, I would think.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that.
Michael, look at this isn't just about Indonesia, Malaysia, and the surrounding area, and the Philippines, and let's say Brunei, and parts of Kalimantan, which is part of and so on over there. What this really is about is humanity, and what it is that the Indonesian people have the main part of this. Indonesia is the main part of it, and they really are the caretakers of this. I mean, the caretakers of and trust for the Atlantean culture going way back, whatever they find. So, but it's not just about just that area. It means something to the whole world. I mean, whether in Brazil, like Professor Santos was, or you're in, let's say, in Europe, it doesn't really matter. It's about all of us, where civilization began, where we all came from, where we all, let's say, migrated from, and so on. So this is what it's really all about. It's really like I mentioned before, the discovery of this theoretically and maybe Danny Hellman physically is the gift to the world. And Indonesia should also benefit from this as, potentially a tourist site. And that's what I spoke about over in the World Cultural Forum in late November in Bali, Indonesia, where also Dr. Hillman participated. And my talk there dealt with the benefits to the culture, because Indonesia is steeped in culture. So is Atlantis. That's where culture actually originated from. It was invented in Atlantis. And believe me, when we were at the gala dinner, which President Yudhoyono hosted, there was an incredible amount of dancers there, and it was just unbelievable culture that is in Indonesia, and all the dresses and all the dances and everything that was done there. And so look at it. This may be very well one of the biggest tourist sites in the entire world, especially, I mean, once you want to go where, you know, civilization began and check that out on one of your vacations, and where, you know, go to where Atlantis was, I mean, that's a draw just in itself. I mean, and all that area, not just maybe Indonesia, but even Malaysia and other parts of that area, because what Professor Stancil's also figured out too on this is that the garden of at least Lemurian Atlantis, the motherland of civilization Mu, was actually, that garden there was the Garden of Eden. And so these things are really important, whether you think of it religiously or not. I mean, I told you before in the broadcast, we're not in this necessarily for the religious reasons, the political reasons, the social reasons, or in my case, maybe not even the economic ones, because usually my time and what we put into this, we're really not running a profit-making corporation, but more like a negative profit one. So, you know, there's a lot to this, and that's, I mean, I really hope, and this is to your question, I really hope that, like Dr. Hillman says, that all this information will truly be released to the world, and so we can all gain from it. Not just one group, but everybody gains from the knowledge, and all humanity benefits.
Yeah, I don't think I can keep it if even if you want to. People will be asked. People is waiting now for the next results, Michael.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't think that you would keep it. I worry more, I don't want to get all political here, but I worry more about like the United States government not wanting that information to get out, and somehow trying to, you know, they've done it for a long time, not just the U.S., but many of them have done it for a long time and they don't want us to know the truth. And so that's what I worry about.
Yeah, I think what I could say is that this year probably we will starting publishing all of results of our research in Gunung Padang, the geophysics, the geology, archaeology to the world in the scientific journals. So it will be something this year.
And peer review. I mean, that's what Professor said.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
A lot of things that he did is he has to go through a peer review process. And so it's going to take some time to do that. But look, there's a lot of people that aren't on board with this. But a few more people tend to get on board as time goes along. And eventually, hopefully, most people, I don't think everybody, but most people end up will get on the bandwagon. And I'm very happy and honored that Danny Hillman and the rest of his team is on this, got on board, you know, and looking to move on this. I mean, I think, you know, my trip in 2010 to the Ancient Sundaland Conference in Bogar helped maybe to inspire some of the scientists like Danny Hillman and on his team to really take a look at some of these places that, you know, nobody really paid too much attention to. And I'm really thank him and his team for really starting to pay attention and do some research and excavation on these sites to see if there's anything more to it than just being a regular mountain. And that's what it needs to be done. And also because we're finally, I think, looking in the right haystack rather than the wrong ones. So if you're looking the right one, you actually might find something, the needle or lance is there, versus all this time where people have been looking in the wrong ones. Professor Stancil mentioned to me several times that initially, a lot of people out there, and scientists especially, were very interested in Atlantis. But because they got pointed into the wrong directions, and researchers were doing the work that didn't have the necessary disciplines to do the work properly, they got turned off because it was just looking in the wrong place over and over again and keep on coming up with nothing at all. And so, especially the hard evidence. And so they got turned off by it, and it became a taboo subject, especially in the academia type community. And, you know, Dr. Hillman's from academia, Dr. Akbar is from academia, Professor Stancil was certainly from academia. And so this is what it's going to take. And but there's some reasons why it's been kind of held secret all this time, and some of it is so not to pillage and plunder and desecrate that area, because it was also like the land of riches. It had the gold, the silver, the tin, the bronze. They made bronze and everything from these metals they used in wars and battles, and they were, it is a very strategic location, and they also had a good size, military and everything else, because they were a worldwide empire. But those type of resources had to come from that place. They really, when they add it all up, it really couldn't come from really hardly any other place in the world in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age.
I see. Frank, can you both hang on for a minute? What I'm gonna have to do here is I gotta switch lines with you, because we do have calls coming in, but I'm unable to take them because we're on the wrong line. So what I'm gonna do, you guys just stay put. I'm gonna drop out for a minute, and then I'll come right back in.
Because probably I initiated the call into you. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's what it did. So just hang on for a moment, and I'll come right back in, folks. I'm going to put on a quick commercial here, just so I could switch lines, and then I can take calls. So hang on for a moment. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. L&M Radio has joined with the Hardened Structures team to provide state-of-the-art survival shelter design and build services at L&M Radio exclusive rates. Hardened Structures, with over 21 years experience in military, commercial, and private shelter design build services, are also offering L&M Radio listeners a free consultation, normally a $500 value. So click on the Hardened Structures banner on the right-hand side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com to receive your special offer today. The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information. All right, folks, I've got it worked out here, and now I can take calls. So let's hit those phone lines. Well, I should be able to. And again, what's going on with these phones?
You're trying to take a phone call versus come in through Skype then?
Well, no, I'm actually trying to take a Skype call, and it says answering this will put it on hold, and that usually happens when someone calls into me. So I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe it's because you initiated the group from the start?
Yeah, the only other way is that you'd have to call myself and Dr. Hillman back, is what you'd have to do. Do you have his... ID?
Yeah, I could do that. So why don't I go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll call you both back so that I can get these calls, because we're missing some calls here. So hang on for a moment, guys. This is Late Night in the Midlands. Actually, I'm going to do it right here while I'm on the air, rather than run any commercial here. So for those of you calling in, just hang on. I'm going to get this thing fixed up here right now. It says add to group. No, we want to do away with that. Oh, let's see. Yeah, there we go. All right. Let's see. Keep saying add to group call. I don't want to add anything to a group call. I want to call individually. Let's see. No.
Okay, Michael?
Yes, Frank. Okay, we're back. Let me get Dr. Hillman back with us. Add him. All right. And now we'll take our first call. Sorry about that, caller. 978 area code. You're on Late Night in the Midlands.
Yeah, how you doing, Michael? This is James.
Hi, James. How are you?
Pretty good. How you doing, Dr. Hillman and Mr. Huff? I live over here in Lowell, and there is a place called Jude Hill, which I feel is actually descendants of Atlantis. And I was wondering if you have ever heard of this filtration technique that they use Actually where Jude Hill is, it's on the edge of the Recods State Forest, where the water kind of seeps up out of the ground and heads down to the Merrimack River. And what they've done is they've put like at least 1 foot or even bigger rocks in the ground, and it forces the roots to grow up out of the ground off the trees. And so as the water comes down off the hill, it goes into like a filtration. The leaves get filtrated through the roots on the down path coming down. Have you ever heard of that before?
What area is this in?
This is Jude Hill, also known as Standing Stones. Like I say, it's over by the Merrimack River in Lowell, Massachusetts.
I'm not really familiar with it, but I don't know if Dr. Hillman might be. I think he dropped off the line. I'm trying to actually connect him back here for Michael. And let me see what I can do on that.
Okay. And James, just hang on for a moment because maybe Dr. Hillman knows. So we've been having some issues here phone-wise.
Yep.
Well, hopefully this does it.
Yeah, I think it will. For some reason, it wouldn't let me.
I'm hoping it lets me. Dr. Hillman, are you there?
That's strange. It's showing them there. Well,
let me see. Try it again here. Hopefully it does it. I'm not see it actually ringing.
Yeah.
You know, like it does. Is the caller still on the line?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
What they also did over there, they built their houses, whatever they lived in, up on the hills up there in through the woods. You could actually see where each house was. They put it like up on a mound, keep it up out of the water as they flowed by.
You know, it's possible in some areas that people may have built things at higher land because of a potential flood, you know, that may be coming through. Right now in Atlantis, or Indonesia, I should say, you only see the vestiges or tip tops of Atlantis. And that's just the mountain area, just the areas of Java and Sumatra as they are today. In the time of Atlantis, as Dr. Hillman was saying, is that the continent actually appears if you drop the sea levels down. You see, it's not that Atlantis sunk. It's that sea levels rose. A lot of people think that's the case. It's an optical illusion. You're out in the vessel, you would notice. I think maybe Dr. Hillman might be coming back on here. So it's actually an optical illusion that Atlantis sunk. So when you're out in the vessel, when the sea levels rose, it will kind of look like Atlantis sunk. But, you know, even this area of Gunung Padang is up high in the mountains, so it's possible they may have known something was coming, so they went up there and started doing this, you know, construction of this megalithic mountain pyramid in order to preserve things. And hopefully that's one of the things they preserved, maybe be the Hall of Records. So we'll all have to wait and see.
Well, it's very possible.
Yeah, okay. I hope I didn't lose anybody. So that may be something to it. If you like, you can certainly send some information over my way and to my email address. It's located on our website, frank@atlantispublications.com. If you got any pictures, photos, that sort of thing, it might be interesting to take a look at that.
Oh, yeah, I have pictures. Actually, they actually outline some rocks, too, and it's really kind of ingenious. Some of the leaves kind of hit a point, and it goes sideways and kind of gets filtered and sent down through the pathway of the rock. And it's really ingenious the way, you know, it hits the limbs and just stops right there and goes sideways, and then the rocks kind of release it down. I've got the pictures somewhere in one of my computers. I'll look for them and send them to you. Nice talking to you. That'd be
great. Again, frank@atlantispublications.com. My email is also listed on our website at www.atlan.org. First 5 letters, atlantis.org website.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you for the call, James. I appreciate it.
Michael.
Yes, sir.
You might try to reconnect with Dr. Hillman. Maybe it might be easier on your end. I don't know because you initiated it for me.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing. And I think what's happening, because he's showing up here on my end as offline. He's got his thing. It's not set on green. It's set on, you know, question mark offline. And I
Well,
think that's
yeah, it's not green on me here, so it may be because it wasn't added originally. The only other way I could do this, I'd have to call you back again and get him back on. So that's the only problem with doing that.
all right. Well, we could just we could finish up that way if you like, and we just we won't be able to take any calls. That's all. I mean, I hate to do, but people.
How many calls do you have holding right now?
Well, we had 6. Now it's cleared, but we did have one hanging around that I was going to bring on, but maybe I could do that 765 area code.
Is that on a phone?
I believe so.
Okay, I tell you what, if you could hold that call, why don't I connect up and we can be able to take that call through the Skype if I connect back to you, right? And Dr. Hillman?
Sure.
It's on the phone. Yeah. Okay, I'll call right back and connect you.
All right.
Dr. Hillman. There we go.
Thank you, Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, we're just holding on. We've had some issues with the phones. It happens. It's touchy. It's like Rascala called me the other day on the show, and I was still able to take calls. And with certain people, it does that. It blocks me out. When somebody calls me, I can't take any other calls. And I don't know why it does that sometimes, but it does. Maybe it's on purpose. I don't know. Maybe the NSA is afraid that you're going to ask the right question. I just don't know. But we're going to get Frank back here. And 765 area code, if you want to try calling back in a moment, we'll see if we can get you on with, so just let it ring for a moment, and I'll add you on here in a minute, I hope. Let's see. All right.
Okay, cool.
Yep, and here's our caller. How about that? It actually worked.
All right, and then I'll call, I'm going to get Dr. Hillman on here for just a second here.
Okay.
If we get lucky, we can get Adam on.
All right. And 765, just hang on for a moment. We'll bring you live with us in just a moment.
Okay.
Well, see, now that tells, I don't know what's going on. It must be a Skype line thing because it wasn't working. Now it is. So,
okay, let's see. Hopefully he can come up on air here. I tried to add him. I'm not sure if it added or what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. It's acting up tonight for some reason.
Dr. Hillman, are you there?
No.
Not there. Okay, let me try again here.
Okay.
Should just be able to add this and should ring.
Well, yeah, a lot of things it should have been doing tonight, and it hasn't. It has its nights.
Yeah, I'm not being able to get him back for some reason or another. The only other way I could do this, I could try him on another system and try to do it that way and see if it would actually add on. Let me try doing this one other way, and if I can't do it this other way, then I'll just keep the caller. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me do it this way. Let me ask the caller's question first. Let me try to do that. Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, I was going to ask, my name's Tom anyways. I was going to say, what do you think about the rock wall in Texas? After, like, watching that American Unearthed on the History Channel, which anything on the TV I don't trust, it's kind of a skeptic at looking at it. But, they described it really fast, and they didn't seem like they had, I've been in construction quite, a bit of my life, and, I used to build retaining walls, with rocks, and if for the test, for me, if I was there, I would want to dig it up to see at the bottom of it, to see if it had a foundation. If it had a foundation, then it obviously was laid by man, I was going to say, is that what you were thinking about that, or if you heard about that or anything?
I think I vaguely heard something about this wall in Texas, but I really never looked into that too much or anything like that. So I really don't know a whole lot about that. But sometimes these things, if they do some type of terracing or they control, erosion, water, that sort of thing, or channel it. A lot of times that'll be a signature for Atlantis, just like in Machu Picchu, also in Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom and so on. So, and as well as again, pyramids are a different signature, but there's certain signatures like that of advanced technology that involve different types of hydraulics. So it might be interesting if you got some articles on that to send that my way. I can kind of take a look at it. Again, I'm not Professor Sansels, but I can also show Dr. Hillman too, because I know he's not on the air right now. I'm going to try to connect back to him. But there's there's different types of signatures of technology that go way back, and it'd be interesting to date some of that material that's there and see if it does go back a ways. And sometimes even if it doesn't go back a ways, it's technology that's been passed on after the destruction of Atlantis around the world. It's just like they had to flee out of that area into South America, over into Ecuador and Peru and in those areas. And that's why there's more archaeological ruins in some of those areas than almost any other place in the world, either discovered or undiscovered.
Yeah, I was going to also ask you a question. What do you think about the mounds and for some of the people that built the mounds, or the Indians said that they were definitely giants that did it. What do you think about any of the archaeology on that? The tie back to Atlantis or?
North America here. Let's say where I'm at in Seattle, also down in Columbia, South Carolina. And where are you from?
Indiana.
In Indiana. Most all this area, across the United States was under a mile-high sheet of ice, which ended up over probably a period of 1,000 years. We believe that the Krakatoa volcano kind of indirectly ended the Pleistocene Ice Age. It had to do with the eruption of it and the soot coming down or the fly ash onto the
there's till from the glaciers out here. I can tell the till from other things, but then the actual mound structures that are like out here, the Mound State Park in Indiana, out in Anderson, and other places that are scattered all around the state were pretty megalithic mounds that were burial sites of some sort, and some of them were actually put together like the Snake one in Ohio. There's another one in Ohio too that was actually excavated. That they, it was quite big. It was these are huge structures. Moving dirt. A lot of dirt.
Right. I'm aware of the different mounds across the United States. I think there's quite a few in Missouri and so on. And I'm aware of these things. I think that they may have come a little bit maybe after the destruction of Atlantis, but they ended up being pyramids, all around the world. And many of them after the destruction of Atlantis. So it's very possible it could be. It's just that sometimes they have to be excavated, see if there's actually anything into it, in the interiors and so on. So, it may very well be from the Atlanteans that, the different types of mounds are, in this case, Gunung Padang Pyramid. It's a pyramid-type mountain, mound, but it's a great big one. So, and it has caverns inside because they've done the geoelectric testing and the ground penetrating radar and so on. And so, I don't know, Michael, if you got a lot of those photos that I sent over to you of Dr. Hillman's work. But
as a matter of fact, I do, and I have some up. I'm going to get them all up on the slider on my main page. I've just been revamping the website, so some things have been removed that have to go back, and so I'll get those back up after the show tonight because I haven't finished.
Okay. Where do you actually think Atlantis is? Do you think that part of it's in that, over by, what do they call it, the Bikini Row or something?
I know what you're talking about, Bimini. No,
Bimini.
Look, at best we think that's a colony or remnant, at best. The actual true original location of Atlantis is Atlantis, Indonesia, in Indonesia and the surrounding area of Southeast Asia. And the major part of it's Indonesia. There's also parts of it that the far northeastern extensions, like the Philippines and also Malaysia, is included in that, and the Malaya Peninsula of Malaysia, as well as the island of Borneo, which contains or has 3 countries on it: Brunei, Malaysia, and also Indonesia with Kalimantan there. So that's where we believe it's at. Is actually in Southeast. Is Asia, Indonesia, and the surrounding area.
Okay, yeah.
The true original location, not an outpost, a remnant, or a colony. And it was a worldwide empire, so they had colonies around the world as well. So, but the origination of the place where civilization began, where cradle or birthplace of civilization, is in Indonesia and that surrounding area. And by the way, if you just lower the sea levels down, the continent will appear again, and we know that because we have a NOAA Space Spy satellite photo showing that the continent is underneath the ocean, and everything's still there today.
Yep. Especially like that pyramid over in Japan too. That's underwater.
Yeah, that's Yonaguni. That may or may not necessarily be artificial. It's a little bit more investigation there, but Gunung Padang is definitely artificial. So we got physical evidence. Just a matter of actually excavating into it, and that's what Dr. Hillman and his Indonesian Presidential Task Force team is looking to do.
Oh, did they? Okay, so you guys were the ones over here getting those. Or go ahead and troll them to see if you guys were trying to hit it with some ground penetrating radar or sonar.
Yeah, I've already done that.
You already did that.
It's already been done. So.
Did they try to stop you also over here too?
There was a little bit of uprising from the locals, but they've gone beyond that. They got the go ahead because President Yudhoyono went up there with the Presidential Task Force, and he gave his blessing and his he gave permission to now drill directly into and excavate directly into the pyramid itself.
Okay, yeah. Now I know who you are now because I remember watching I watched something on you guys doing that, and I was really interested in it. And
well, it's going to go forward.
Now I'm talking to you, so
all right,
that's crazy.
I got to run and pick up Dr. Hillman again. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm getting off here. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
You guys have a good one.
All right. You too.
Okay. I'm going to reconnect on another computer with you, Michael. I think it might go a lot better.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
All right, folks. Well, we're at that point now anyways. I've got to take my short break, and then we'll come back. Very interesting stuff here. And, you talk about the Hall of Records. How fascinating would that be? And I don't know. Will we get that information? I certainly hope so. And if we do, you could bet that I'll have these guys on to tell us about it. Okay, Frank, just hang on for 1 second. I'm going to go to my short break here, and I want to thank those of you who did get through with your calls, and for those of you who didn't, I apologize, but Frank I'm sure would be more than happy to answer your questions if you were to email him from his website, which I do have linked up on the homepage of Late Night in the Midlands. Frank?
Yes, I'll be glad to do that. Also, it's possible you might be able to, if somebody else calls in through Skype, you might be able to connect now.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Well, if anybody else wants to get through, if you want to call back in, you know the number. It's on the website, 803-317-2264. All right. So, guys, we've got about another, 17, 18 minutes left. And wherever you would like to go with this now would be great.
Well, I don't know. Dr. Hillman, did you want to say anything? I've got a couple of things I'd like to kind of tell a little bit more about why Atlantis is there and a couple of the things that regarding the destruction of it. But Dr. Hillman, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I hear you, Frank. So, well, yeah, that's the research on Atlantis, or where for the ancient civilizations on the Ice Age before the Holocene is very interesting topics. One of the first things that we should do, the researchers should do, is get the ages, the dating, the carbon dating, the absolute dating of all the megalithic sites in the world, even the pyramid itself, like Sphinx, for example, that has been dated by Robert Shaw to be older than 7,000 years ago. And who knows, other megalithic sites in the world also pointing out to more than 10,000 years ago. So the fact is, the megalithic sites all over the world, it has been not very well studied. That's our thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so far I think that from all these different sites, including Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. They date back maybe around 10,000 years.
11,600.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
But right now, it looks to me that maybe Gunung Padang may be the oldest dated site in the world. And
it could be ordered, yes.
And to me, it would make sense that if Atlantis was in Indonesia, that it might be the oldest dated site in the world. It would go back a ways. Versus some of these other sites that have been discovered around the world that don't quite go back to that age. So that's why when I saw the information on Göbekli Tepe, I thought, oh shoot, I think that they're going to find in Indonesia that there's going to be something that's going to date back a lot further than that, and it looks like that's coming true. So
yeah.
The thing I was going to do briefly, Michael, is kind of a 101 because we didn't really do this in enough depth earlier in the program for your listeners about why I think Atlantis is Indonesia. I just want to do this quickly, hopefully in a couple of minutes, and then maybe some other callers will call in, or you can add them on or whatever, and we can address their questions. But again, Professor Santos found out that there's a Lemurian Atlantis, a motherland of civilization that got destroyed, we believe is by the Toba volcano at about, I don't know, maybe close to 75,000 years ago or so. But it's well documented on that, and there's not too much argument that volcano really did go off. What we found out, and we believe, is that volcanoes can trigger on an ice age, and they can also trigger one off. Either directly or indirectly. And I'll kind of go through that. It may be that the civilization, when it got back maybe hundreds of thousands of years with Lemurian Atlantis, and it was the motherland of civilization, where civilization really began. But because the volcano went off, it ended up destroying a lot of the Lemurian Atlantis, and we understand that they may have fled into the area of the Indus Valley between what is now more Pakistan, but more India at the time, between that area, in the areas of Harappa and also Mohenjo-daro. And it's the Indus Valley civilization. And India and that area is known as the father of civilization, the fatherland, where Lemurian Atlantis was the motherland, again, over in the Indonesian area. But the offspring was, after they rebuilt, and just think about this, and I've mentioned this before in previous shows, they rebuilt over a period of 60,000 years, not just 1,000 or 2,000, but 60,000 to the advanced civilization, Atlantis proper, which is the wondrous sun of the offspring. So in a sense, there was maybe three Atlantises, let's say the mother, the father, and then also their offspring, the son, the wondrous sun, Atlantis proper. What we believe is that and this is where we got to get more data on this, hopefully on the ground, as we spoke about it earlier. The Krakatoa volcano later went off, and it also it ended up sending up a tsunami initially, just like the one that happened in Aceh in let's say December 26th of 2005, and also I think it's in 2011 with Sendai in Japan. And you saw what just going up the waves from that tsunami. Let's say maybe 25 meters high or something, all that water that came inland, it was just amazing that how much it was just a flash flood, but again, it was a tsunami effect going in. But later on, it did this, it did the same thing with Atlantis, and instead of going up just 25 meters, it may have gone up close to 2,000 meters, so it was a huge wave coming in. And that is what made Atlantis look like it was sinking, is that sea levels rose. And if you're out in some type of vessel, it's an optical illusion. You're thinking that Atlantis sunk, but it's really that the sea levels rose. Now, what happened is, just like in Aceh and also in Sendai, the waters receded from the initial tsunami and went back into the ocean. Same way, and of course, in this case, in Indonesia and also Sendai, it also pulled a lot of people out to sea and they drowned. Professor Santos thought that maybe in the whole area that was even to Sri Lanka and Malaysia and Indonesia and so on, as many as 400,000 people perished in that tsunami that was up in Aceh and in the Banda Aceh area of Indonesia, of Sumatra, northern Sumatra. But the thing is that with a 2,000 meter high wave coming in from what we believe the super volcano caldera volcano Krakatoa, it really took out the basic continent, and a lot of people drowned besides being burnt by the Krakatoa volcano. But later on, and that's known as like the Great Deluge. But later on, what happened, we believe, is over 1,000 years, the sea levels rose worldwide anywhere from 130 to 150 meters. And in that shallow area in and around Indonesia, that's where you just see the vestiges and tip tops of Atlantis Bay. But if you lower down the water level, the continent would appear again, like I say, the size of, it's basically the whole United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, and so on, the size that Plato spoke about in his dialogues of Critias and Timaeus, the size of Asia Minor and Libya combined, which was actually all of North Africa at the time. So what we found also is that the universal flood, which was not just localized in that area, but even across the whole world, occurred as well because of the Krakatoa fly ash coming down out of the atmosphere and the stratosphere over time and coming down on the glaciers. And what we see is that it was called the albedo effect. It had to do with the reflection from what was the glaciers, which was a white surface versus a darker black surface, and absorbing the sunlight and melting those glaciers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All around the world. Off of, let's say, North America and Europe, where we had basically a mile-high sheet of ice, a couple of thousand meters high of ice here. And so that water from the glaciers had to go someplace. And they went back into the ocean and raising the ocean levels up, not only just in Indonesia, where it was a shallow area, but also around the world. So it's changed the geography, but especially in that area where it was shallow to begin with. The other thing is the weight, the enormous weight that came off the continent also ended up causing more seismic activity in places that were weak, and both on the continents around the world, but also on the sea floor, because it ended up going back onto the ocean floors and put a lot more pressure on the floor. So it all had to balance out over a period of time, because you're taking pressure off the continents, but you're putting more pressure on the sea level floor. So all this had to balance out over a period of time. But what we understood is to be the universal flood, because of the separation between the deluge, which ended up being the tsunami, and that receded, and then also the universal flood that preceded that over 1,000 years because of the albedo effect, which, by the way, is listed in our book and also on our website, because we have these book links in there, and it's number 12012, and that goes to a NASA website confirming that this fly ash or soot can indeed cause the glaciers or the ice on the continent to melt, because it will absorb the sunlight and melt the ice versus reflect it. You follow me?
I do. That makes a lot of sense, because I wondered, what made the ice melt. I always wondered if maybe it was just the sun got hotter or what happened, and that makes complete sense that, the black soot on top would absorb the heat and cause the melting.
And this is where maybe Toba or some other one, probably Toba, maybe triggered on a ice age, maybe blocking, the sun and going up in the stratosphere and so on. But also, the Krakatoa maybe potentially and maybe indirectly triggered it off, because it ended up going to the stratosphere normally and initially into the stratosphere, but also came down in the glaciers later on that ended up melting all the ice all around the world. Again, Atlantis proper was in the middle of the Pleistocene ice age. It was in the middle of that and at the height of it for the destruction of it. And so it was an Ice Age civilization. Lemurian Atlantis was maybe not necessarily the case, but maybe when that Toba volcano went off, maybe actually triggered on the Ice Age. Again, sometimes things take a trigger in order to trigger on, like electronic flip-flop, as Professor Santos described on the website that we have under the free articles and also in the book. And so sometimes this can be your greenhouse effect or your hothouse effect, and sometimes it cycles back and forth. And so, like even Dr. Hillman says, sometimes you can go into a hot period, but it goes through a cycle and a process, and sometimes we'll end up going back either to a mini ice age or an ice age. And certain things can possibly trigger this, and we felt that the volcanoes could be one of these triggers.
Well, some of them obviously must have survived, right? I mean, did they have some kind of warning? And I mean, some were able to survive and escape it because we're here, right?
I didn't quite catch that, Michael. I just wanted Dr. Hillman maybe pulled off here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There, Dr.
I'm back again. I'm back again.
All right, I got you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do. Maybe I'll better turn off this other system. Might be better too.
Yeah. My question was that some had to have survived it, right? Because we're here today.
Yeah, and here's the deal on that. And look, we feel that what happened is that when out of the area, when they had to escape out of there, and by the way, whether they may have had these flying machines too, and you know, you may have mentioned to see things down on Earth, and they did have the Brahmanas and things like that. Attested in some of the ancient texts, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and so on. But they fled northward and westward and into the area of India. They got chased out of some areas, ended up in the Indus Valley, but eventually went up to Persia, Iran, up into Iraq, and over to Egypt, and then through Europe and all the different places, Turkey and so on. So that's one way they went. They also were a seafaring people, and they had they were very good at navigating the seas, circumnavigating the world. And they ended up going, because of some of the currents and things, the oceanographic currents took them right into the area of Peru and Ecuador. They also had to go there too because the Pleistocene ice age was still melting. So sometimes they couldn't go too higher up in some of these latitudes. As I mentioned before, they couldn't go really above for a while, 30 degrees north latitude and also 30 degrees south latitude. They couldn't come to the United States, for instance, because there's still quite a bit of ice still on the continent. It had to melt over a period of 1,000 years. So they went down to those areas where it was closer to the equator in this case, and where they actually made it with the indigenous population of South America. Anybody down there, and they brought their technology to them, including the hydraulics and the terracing and things that you see in Machu Picchu and so on, those signatures, and a whole lot of other things. That's where you get the Kukulkan, the Quetzalcoatl, and some of these feathered serpents and other, so-called fallen angels, whether your Atlanteans that led out of that area, or else the sons and daughters or sons and daughters of the Atlanteans. So. And they spread around the world, and also the technology and so on. And that's why you have pyramids around the world too, because they brought some of that technology. They weren't all exactly the same exact pyramids, but it depends on which engineers and scientists and construction people, were able to get out of that area, because again, it was a catastrophic destruction that took place, and you just had to get out any which way you can, and where you could go. I mean, that was not, just on an ice cube.
Okay, and we're down to about another 3 minutes at most, and I want to give you both an opportunity to finish up and close out. And I want to thank you guys for joining me here tonight. This has been very, very interesting.
Yeah, Dr. Hillman?
Yeah. Let me say the closing words, I would think. So besides the researching the ancient civilizations in the last age, we also, from the geoscience, has to do more research on the history of the Earth since last ice age, including how dramatic the climatic changes, all of the catastrophic events like earthquakes, tsunamis, volcano eruptions, especially the younger dryas event, which is still a big mystery for us, the geoscience and the entire world. So really, if we'd like to understand how ancient civilization, our ancient civilization developed, we have to understand the Earth also, the Earth processes, especially the younger dryas. And we know here that our cultures developed after the younger dryas. So what happened there? I think that's what I could say.
All right.
We need lots more data on that.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Hillman. And Frank?
Thank you.
A lot of this relates to, and it's mentioned in Professor Stansels' book and on our website, Meltwater Pulse 1B. So listeners might check that out, but that's the time of some of this change in sea level and so on was in relationship to Meltwater Pulse 1B. So they might check that out. The other thing I was going to say is that Professor Stansels, and I didn't really get into what his background was, but he was a nuclear physicist, a nuclear engineer. He was also a climatologist, a physical chemist, and he took in other disciplines like archaeology and anthropology and linguistics and a whole lot of other things, and also even occultism. Not that he wanted to be an occultist, but just so he can understand the symbolism and hidden meanings behind things, that sort of thing, in order to decipher the whole riddle of Atlantis. Our website is at www.atlan.org. It's the first 5 letters, Atlantis.org website. Our book, in this case, is by Professor Mauricio Santos, is Atlantis, the Lost Continent Finally Found, and the subtitle of the definitive localization of Plato or Plato's lost civilization. Dr. Hillman's book is it's called Plato Never Lied. Atlantis is in Indonesia. We actually have a link from our website to Amazon as well, or maybe at the local bookstores. Ours is distributed by Random House. And by the way, we'll be coming out eventually with a Kindle book on that as well, that we're going to in the future. And I should tell you that Dr. Danny Hillman Nata Wijaya book is not only in English, but in Bahasa Indonesia in both languages.
All right, great. And I want to thank Dr. Akbar, too, for joining us tonight. Sorry that he wasn't able to stick with us for a very long time, but thank you for the effort.
Yeah, listen, thank you, Michael, and thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Dr. Hillman, for joining us. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can have Dr. Ali Akbar on longer. I know he did click off, so he wasn't on. Wasn't able to contact.
Yeah, he sent a call for the meeting, so he said sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and please keep me updated because I am very interested in this whole topic and certainly that Hall of Records. We want to get to that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mike.
All right.
atlan.org is the first 5 letters of Atlantis. It's a .org website. Michael?
Yes, sir. And now let me ask you this. What is it that has really, what is it about the research that has really opened your eyes to the fact that Atlantis did not only once exist, but that it's been found? I mean, I guess what has, because I still have people who say, oh no, there's no such thing as Atlantis, it's a story, and usually those people are pretty biblical, so that's why they don't want to even look at Atlantis. But what tells you that it's real, that it's not just a story?
Well, great question, and I just want to preface the show as I usually do with you in saying that Professor Stansels or myself, we're not here like for some type of political reason or religious reason or social reason. We're not looking to put one religious group against the other or one sect of one religious group against the other, anything like that. So we're mainly doing this from a scientific standpoint. That's where we're at on it, and really to get the truth out from a scientific standpoint. Because Professor Stansels told me from the very beginning that this was really his gift to the world. And he really never made any money on it. He never made a cent, and he formed the corporation, which I'm the president of, called Atlantis Publications. and then I incorporated here in the state of Washington, Atlantis Publications Inc., to basically do further his research on this, and also to promote his books. As books, it'll be plural, and we just have the one out right now, and also work with the Indonesian scientists and other people to really get the word out to the whole world, because this is really about humanity. And in more directly answer to your question, what we found out is that the oceans over time got changed, the names of the oceans. In other words, what's happened, and it's kind of like this Malaysian airplane, what is it called, MH370, Malaysian Air?
Yeah.
We've been, they've been looking for this airplane over actually in the same basic area. And I don't know how many times I've heard on the radio broadcasts, on television and even regular AM and FM radio, that it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And the problem is finding the right haystack to look in, or haystacks. They've been looking at all these different haystacks, and they're trying to find the right one. Well, it's the same thing with Atlantis, is that all this time we've been looking in the wrong haystack or haystacks for the needle or for Atlantis. And if that's the case, you'll never find it if it's in these other haystacks. If it's not in these other haystacks, but it's in a different one in a different place. And so what we found out is that Plato, when he put the information out, he encoded the word Atlantis, which is like a Greek word, in 3 different languages. One language was ancient Greek, the other one was Sanskrit, and the other, what we found out, is the language of the Atlanteans themselves, and also the pristine language in all of Southeast Asia, and that language is called Dravida. It's Dravidian. And I've had on the show in the past a couple of my colleagues, and they are in Singapore, and they speak a language called Tamil, which is a close derivative to Dravida. And so I know they spoke on your show before, and we're working and decoding some of the actual Dravida, which Professor Stancils, by the way, spoke. And he, additionally to that, he actually spoke 14 languages. And I don't know if you mentioned about Professor Stancils' background, but I'll go into that in a minute. But I want to finish up answering your question. We found out that it's that the word is highly encoded in these 3 different languages. And what it means is that, in short, that Atlantis is located on the opposite side of the world, antipodal, in the antipods, in the sunk.
Getting her done, folks. We're adding our other 2 guests in here, so just bear with us.
Hello.
Dr. Akbar?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Frank Joseph Hoff and also Michael Vera. Can you hear Michael?
Hello. How are you, Doctor?
Well, I had him for a second. Let's try again.
Sometimes if somebody's using Wi-Fi too, that'll knock them off. Something could interfere with the signal.
Dr. Akbar?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is Frank Sapop. Can you also hear Michael Vera? Go ahead, Michael.
Hello, Doctor. How are you?
Hello, fine, thanks.
It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Maybe what I could do is I could bring on Dr. Danny Hillman, too, at the same time to make sure we've got him.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just see if I can do that, too. If he's on, let me just see if I can add him as well. Then we'll have it all.
Okay. All right. And tomorrow night, folks, as I said, I've got Dr. Michael Nuccitelli joining me. Not quite sure what direction we're going tomorrow night, but I will get it up on the website sometime after tonight's show, so you'll be able to check that out. And I think we're doing something a little different tomorrow night, him and I.
Hey, Dr. Hillman? Dr. Hillman, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is
Loud and clear.
Can you hear Michael okay?
Hello, Doctor.
Yes, I hear Michael too.
Hi.
Hi, Michael.
Okay, we tried to bring everybody on to make sure we got the connections good. I want to let you know Dr. Ali Akbar is also on here as well. And you probably should go with at least the interview first with Dr. Akbar, Michael, because he needs to leave a little earlier.
Oh, okay. Dr. Akbar, I
Hello.
guess, hello. Let's start out, if you wouldn't mind, giving a little background, and we can start there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm an archaeologist. I'm a lecturer in University of Indonesia.
Great. And well, what? I guess you're involved in the Atlantis, helping find or discover Atlantis as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, in fact, I made several research in Gunung Padang, and Gunung Padang sites is hello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're here.
Yeah. The chronology of Gunung Padang is around 15,000, 10,000 BC, and perhaps if we talk about Atlantis, it is near the chronology of Atlantis. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 11,600 BC.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. I hear something in the background. I don't know if someone's got the show rolling.
Yeah. Dr. Hillman and also Dr. Akbar, if you were running the streaming audio off of his website, you might turn that all off.
Yeah, I'm just turning it off. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, actually, wherever he would like to go would be great. I'd like to learn more about his discoveries and go off of that, if we could.
So, Dr. Akbar, you might explain a little bit about your research and your investigation and maybe excavation, that sort of thing, of Gunung Padang pyramid megalithic site.
Yeah, okay. Gunung Padang megalithic sites actually was.
Good evening.
Good evening, Frank. How are you?
Good evening, Michael.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Frank Joseph Hoff on the line with me, everybody. Frank, wherever you would like to start is fine with me, and I want to thank you for taking time out to be with us. It's going to be a very interesting night, and we could possibly, as we bring each guest on, we'll have them give a little more background, because I'm sure I didn't do some of the names in those bios justice. So, but wherever you'd like to start, Frank.
Okay, well, like I say, good evening to you and all your listeners. And yes, this is going to be an important show because we do have Dr. Danny Hillman, and it's Nata Wijaya will be on. And also, he is a geologist and actually the lead scientist for the Gunung Padang megalithic pyramid mountain location, which is actually artificial, by the way, and he'll get into that. And also our archaeologist is Dr. Ali Akbar. They are both located in Indonesia. And so I probably, maybe for your listeners, should give maybe the 101 as far as about maybe myself. I don't know. Did you read my bio too? Or
yes, I did. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I used to be the business agent and researcher and understudy for Professor Mauricio Nunes dos Santos, and his book, which is Atlantis, the Lost Continent Finally Found, and with the subtitle of The Definitive Localization of Plato or Plato's Lost Civilization. I should tell everybody, originally, Professor Santos did not go out in endorsing Atlantis or thinking it was even existed ever. It took him about 10 years into the research after his son Antonio started to tip him off on it might be a good idea to look into this because he had read Eric von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, and got inspired by that. So he wanted his father to actually check in to what this situation might be in regards to Atlantis, if it might be a real situation. He didn't think it was, but after about 10 years of research, he found out there was really something to it. Then he took another 10 years to start filling in the pieces, and then since the last 10 years with a little bit with me on that, in order to really fill in all the pieces of the puzzle. And I'm not talking about like a 1,000-piece puzzle or a 2,000-piece puzzle, but actually like a billion-piece puzzle. So he had to really assemble this because it got scattered all around the world, basically, the information and where the true location of Atlantis really is, and not a remnant, a colony, or an outpost. So Professor Sansels himself had to turn it really around 180 degrees on his thinking, but he was an honest scientist, and he didn't just, throw it up on a shelf or in the garbage can when he found out there was something really to it, but actually came out and really wrote the book, because originally he was going to write papers against the whole notion of Atlantis. And it's really a riddle, it's an enigma that's been long in coming, basically 11,600 years plus in coming, and getting the information out. And so unfortunately, he passed away, Professor Aricia Nunes dos Santos, in September of 2005, about less than 2 months after he released his book on Amazon.com. And by the way, our book is located up on Amazon.com. It's actually being distributed through Random House, and you should be able to find it at local bookstores or request it. And or else you can go up to our website, which has information on it too under the free articles, plus our book is listed there, and there's a link to it. And that's at www.at. As Plato, first of all, described, or Plato for your international listeners, described in his dialogues, the Critias and Timaeus dialogues, and that's where we learned of the story from. He actually, at the time, learned of it too from Solon, the great lawmakers of Athens, when he was on a vacation to Egypt and talking to the Egyptian priests. I want to mention that that's where the information comes from, but we also went further and found out that the Egyptians ended up getting that information from the Hindus in like India, and then the Hindus ended up getting it from the Atlanteans themselves, in this case in Southeast Asia, Atlantis, Indonesia. So we traced it back to that. The thing is that this location is a location that is mountainous. It does have volcanic activity, and that was partly responsible for the destruction of Atlantis, in fact, a major way. But also, it has the things like, the coconuts and the bananas and the different ancient types of woods and the frankincense, which I saw a frankincense tree when I was actually up there, actually on the Gunung Padang megalithic pyramid mountain site. I was actually up there as well. And they also, frankincense from the trees come from Sumatra, which now called Sumatra today. And so there's a whole lot of things that they were able to obtain from this particular location. The other thing was the different minerals, the gold, the silver, the copper, the tin, things they had to make all sorts of weapons and things on. Hey, I'm getting a message from Dr. Ali Akbar and about signing on. Have you logged on to any of the other guests coming up?
No, I haven't yet. Do I have their?
Yeah, I sent it over to you on the email.
Oh, okay. Well, let me ask them to hold on for just about another 5 minutes, and then on the break, I'll make sure I do that.
All right, I'll try to send them a message.
Okay. Thank you. And everybody, again, we'll take calls a little later in the show.
Hello, Michael?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. I don't know what happened. Somehow I lost you. I'm trying to get the other two gentlemen on with us, but it's not. It keeps saying call failed. So I think it's because they're not listed as being online right now. They're
online, but let me get their Mr. Ali Akbar, Dr. Ali Akbar's email to you. I may have give you the wrong Skype one. I'm going to put it on your Skype board.
Okay.
And this way you should be able to send that to him, or else I can connect to them if that might be better.
Sure. If you want to do that, that's fine.
Hopefully I can do this. Let me just see what I can do.
Okay.
I may have to call you back actually to do that. So let me see if I can do this here, but I may have to call you back actually.
Okay, that's fine. If you want to do that, that works out.
I'll call you right back.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fine. All right, folks. So there you have it. So we're going to be held up a few minutes here. That's live radio. This is what happens when you don't have people doing everything for you, and you actually have to do it all yourself. This is what happens. So, but I don't mind. It's reality. This is the kind of thing that goes on. Now, if we were on some big FM station, they'd be throwing something on and trying to fake it. But here we go. Let's see. All right, Frank.
Okay.
Yeah, there you are. All right, so we're good.
Let me see if I can do this. I'm hoping I can figure out exactly how to connect them on here. I may have to do it from my other computer if I can't do it here, but one way or the other, we will do it. So right. Let me...
well, no pressure.
Yeah. Okay, here's something here. I'll do it, I think. Let's see. I think I found what I need. And here we go.
Yeah, it gets tricky sometimes.
We're getting mountain marshland on the opposite side of the world, and that's where it's really located. And the reason is this. The names of the oceans got changed over time. The Pacific Ocean is what I'm referring to, and that one specifically got, it supposedly got discovered by Vasco Balboa. But where the change came in is with another explorer called Ferdinand Magellan, when he saw it through the Straits of Magellan through Argentina and Chile Way, and he saw it as a very peaceful and passive and calm ocean. So he named it Pacific. He named it like Pacifico, or in some senses you can use called Pacifica, because it comes from the infinitive Spanish Portuguese verb called pacificar, and it means to be passive and calm and peaceful. And so what we did is we either dropped the O or we dropped the A, and that's why it's called Pacific today. Mm-hmm. So that added a lot of confusion to things. And then also the Indian Ocean got changed. In fact, it used to be called even the Erythraean Sea before it was called the Oceans of the Atlanteans, like the Pacific Ocean was. And then the one that's called Atlantic Ocean today, it should have probably been called something like the English Ocean or something else, because it would make actually a lot more sense. And the Indian Ocean, as it's called today, should have probably been left, Atlantic Ocean or Atlantean Ocean. So everybody's thinking, like, if it's Atlantis, it's got to be located in or around the Atlantis Ocean.
Right.
Or Atlantic Ocean. Do you follow me?
Oh, I'm following. Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, overall, that Atlantis was known to be located in the Orientale, or the Orient, not the Occidentale, or the Occident. And so this is one thing. It's actually where East meets West. It's what the whole thing about where East meets West is what it refers to. And that location, and I've described this on the show before, is where the Pacific Ocean meets the Indian Ocean, between the South China Sea and the Java Sea. And that region we discovered for the true location of Atlantis, not an outpost, a remnant, or colony, is Indonesia and the surrounding area of Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's a whole lot more to than that, but that's just kind of in a nutshell to mention to you, to lay it out for your listeners about really looking in the right haystack for once. Because if you keep on looking in the wrong ones, like in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, in and around Spain or Antarctica or the North Pole or some of these other areas, you'll never find it. That's one thing. The other thing is Atlantis had existed in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age. So because this goes back 11,600 years plus, 12,000, 13,000, 30,000, plus years back in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age, the height of it. The question is, where on the face of this planet, in the height of the Pleistocene Ice Age, are you going to be able to locate or develop a civilization? And again, it's where civilization began, or the birthplace of civilization, or the cradle of civilization is Atlantis, Indonesia. And where are you going to locate all those people in the middle of the Pleistocene Ice Age and be able to feed them? As Plato described it, had to be in a tropical climate, and the area or the size of the continent was that of Libya, which was all the northern Africa at the time, not just Libya as it is today geographically, and Asia Minor, which is like Western, Turkey combined. So it's a huge area. The basic area is really, so people have a better grasp on it, is the size of like the United States with Alaska and Hawaii combined. It would take all that and even a little bit more for the size of the subcontinent, which is really the subcontinent of Asia, Southeast Asia. And you can see that described in our book too.
So now I would ask, how are you sure that it's Atlantis and not another possible continent of some sort that might have sank? And I know that question comes up a lot. So
sure, and that's why a lot of like your listeners really need to read into our book. But I'll lay out a few things.